Appreciate it, Justin. I appreciate everything you're doing for the game of football and trying to better the game and better us as coaches and mentors and men. And Justin and I were talking a little bit, and really, this time of what's going on in our country is a chance for us as coaches to kind of practice what we preach all the time to our young men. We talk to them about overcoming adversity and fighting through obstacles we have, taking coaching and learning and things like that. And this is an opportunity for us with this pandemic to really to do those things. And I'm grateful for you, Justin, for putting this together. I wanted, before we get into some tackling, and I know somebody from Atavist spoke last week maybe, so there'll be some carryover and maybe some differences on how I kind of look at it and present. But it's all to make the game a little bit safer, and we'll get into that in a minute. Just wanted to talk a little bit about some philosophy stuff and teaching and drill setup, because I think that's really important, that when we're in our meeting rooms that we're efficient, and then when we do our drills that we're efficient and actually getting something out of our drills and not just checking boxes. So something that I kind of heard and really stuck with me is, I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. And I think when we're presenting to our young players that this is something, we can't just get up and lecture or show them something and expect them to get it. Walkthroughs and really going through the nuts and bolts and explaining the why are very, very important. When we do teach in the meeting room, that Coach Ash brought to us, and I think this comes really from Urban Meyer, is more of a direct teaching. Again, a lot of times we want to stand up, we want to lecture to a guy, or hey, present something and say, hey, you got it, and everybody says yes. Or you ask the whole group a question and one person answers it, but the other guys don't really. Is I think you have to have direct teaching, making sure that you're asking one individual, a specific person, hey, explain this to me, or what did I just say, or give you the key coaching or buzzwords back to you. The more you can have one of your student athletes teach the rest of the group exactly what you want done, if you can have that happen, really that means you're connecting with them and they understand. And then obviously always explaining the why. And when I grew up, it was, if your parents or your coach told you to do something, you didn't ask why, you just did it and figured it would help you out. In today's day and age, student athletes and people in general, they want to know, hey, how is this going to help me? Why am I doing this? So the more you can explain, whether it's a stretch, whether it's, hey, when we ask you a question, we want you to stand up and be loud and clear and concise with your answer, the more you can explain the why and the expectations, the better off everybody will be. Have a plan. When you go in to your meeting, have a plan. And I use this all the time, this CASCR. And it helps me in a couple ways. One, it makes sure I'm efficient with how I'm teaching. I'm getting everything done that I need to get done, all my points across. But I also want the players to kind of be thinking this way. So when they're in walkthroughs or they're on the football field, this is kind of going through their mind. So I use CASCR. C stands for call. What does it mean to you? A, alignment. Don't beat yourself. What must you stop? Stance, whether it's inside foot up, outside foot up, square, whatever, so you do not waste, so you can eliminate wasted movement. Your key, and this is the hardest one, what am I looking at? And more importantly, what does that key tell me? So if I get a down block, where's the ball going? If I get a reach block, where's the ball going? If I get some kind of, release, what's that mean to me? And then finally, your responsibility, because everybody's counting on you. So that's CASCR, just something that has helped me teach. And then hopefully the players, when they're out there on the field, that's going through their thought process. Now, your daily drill work, and to me, man, it gets overlooked how important your daily drill work is. And going back through for this clinic and then just watching video of myself and other people doing drills over the last, excuse me, month or so, it's amazing kind of what you see and what you don't see on drill setup. So to me, you got to answer the following questions. What is the purpose of the drill? Can the players see the drill on game film? Does it make them better? Does it practice what they need to get better at? And do they include the movements that the players use most of the time? And then your drills should be, they should cover considerable ground in a short period of time. Be well planned and administered. You don't want setup time and explaining the drill while you're out there on the field. Be known by the players so they can go ahead and execute it, and then improve the weaknesses, but don't ignore the things you do all the time, and build the reactions of your players. And we'll talk about this as we look at some of this tackling drills. Some of Rex Norris and some guys at Atavis and I were talking, where you stand during a drill is so critical of what am I looking at. If you have the luxury of filming drills, where the camera's filming, what it's looking at, those are critical points into becoming more efficient and effective with your drill work. Now, we kind of have two types of drills that we work on, and we talk about this all the time. Your drills need to really be in two categories. They need to be developers, and developers are anything for your position group, to improve your daily fundamental skills. For a DB, it's footwork, it's block protection, contact tackling, ball drills, those sorts of things. And then your specifics, which is more of your drills related to scheme, responsibility. So that could be, hey, we're working on, stacks. We're working on a cover 4 different kinds of releases by the tight end or something like that. Those change week to week, and these will be kind of slowed down versions of what your players are gonna see that week to help them be effective and make plays when it comes time to it. And then there's really 3 types of drill types that we talk about. Your technical drills. Those are your fundamental focuses. Those, when you're working on a technical, that might be a footwork, a plant and drive. Those want to be 95 to 100% effective. Very efficient and specific movements that are really low-keyed, not high impact. Then you kind of go to the next phase. That's more your decision making. Those are, you want to develop situational awareness, apply pressure to technical execution. All right. Those want to be between 75 and 80%. They're a little bit harder. You've got to think and react. And then finally, your game base. Those are increased competition where you have to make decisions at game speed. It's still focused where it's not a huge setting, where it might be a 1-on-1, a 2-on-2, 3-on-3 type setting, not a full 11-on-11. Those are going to be anywhere from the 65% or more based. So those are kind of how we break up. Hey, what are we technical decision making or game based? We want our guys to kind of understand how that works. So now I want to talk about tackling and get into some of the nuts and bolts of our presentation here. And I got a little video, and I encourage you guys to do some of this too when you're presenting to your players. Really use different avenues to catch their attention. So it's just anything to help gain their knowledge, catch their attention, and get your point across. So I've got a little couple clips here I want to show you, and then we'll talk more about it. That's what we're trying to get to right there. In all of our sprint and gather, leverage, shoulder tackling right there will be your result. Here's a clip just of Earl Thomas with the Seattle Seahawks and the type of tackling we want to get to here and what we're going to talking about positive to negative, taking away distance, closing ground all the time. And this is a great example of what tackling and especially what the boys at Atavis have kind of helped me out and gotten our guys to improve on. So I'll pause it right there, and you can see this graph where it has positive and then negative. So the whole point of the positive and negative is pre-contact, we always want to try and get our body position so we can make positive contact tackles. So when we're in this positive, now we've got great strike timing. We can make dominant tackles, and you'll see when Earl Thomas makes contact here, he is actually forcing the ball carrier back. When you get into a negative situation, you can still make tackles in the negative situations. The issue with negative situation tackling is now it's more of a wrap and roll, an arm tackle, and the ball carrier still goes forward. So all the time when we talk about tackling with our guys, we talk, did you make the tackle or did you not? And then how can we improve and get better? So that's just kind of a little picture of what a positive and negative situation looks like. Obviously here with Earl, he's in a positive situation and you'll see the end result. Right there's contact. There's no yards after contact because he gets his body in that positive situation. That's what we're striving to get to. So now I've got this. This is a 2-year study from Rutgers, and this is pre-Atavis tackling, post-Atavis tackling. And, can you improve your tackling? Heck yes, you can. And here are numbers as a defense and as a team to let you know that if you continually work on practicing tackling every single day, preach it to your guys, and have a method, whether it's Atavis, whether it's leverage shoulder or whatever it is, you can constantly improve your tackling and help you win football games. And you look at some of these numbers are staggering. So the first one, if you look at this number right here, so explosive plays are what we consider 10 yards after contact. So in a 2-year pre-Atavis to post-Atavis, Rutgers, we went from 40 explosive plays after contact to 17. So that's almost two a game. That's a huge, you look at a lot of goals and stuff like that, or maybe 3 explosive plays or less. And now we've just cut this down by 2 by working leverage shoulder tackling. You look at the yards, that's a huge number, 864. That's 600 yards that we were able to improve on from allowing explosive plays. You look at the non-contact missed tackles was a huge number, and then yards allowed from non-contact. So as a defense, in just 1 year time working with Atavis tackling and just tackling in general and putting an emphasis on it, this is what we were able to do at Rutgers defensively. And then from a player to player, I put on there, this is Saquan Hampton. And one of the reasons why I did this is because of his improvement. And here he is at Rutgers making a leverage shoulder tackle. And then here he is now with the New Orleans Saints. He was drafted by the Saints. But when we get into some of these drills, you'll see some drills of Saquan. But more importantly, when we get on the video of Rutgers tackling, a lot of the clips are of Saquan, and he did an unbelievable job. Again, this is just him in a 1-year time frame, what he improved on. So he improved, almost 30% of using his shoulder to make tackle. So going from head across to head behind, leverage shoulder tackle, he improved almost 30%. And because of that improvement of working that leverage shoulder tackling, his made tackle percentage went from 74% to 84%, and that's huge. If we can tackle at an 84% efficiency, we're going to win games. Kind of the numbers and benchmarks high schools, a lot of high school teams, if you can tackle to 77% or higher, that's winning on defense. All right, you have a higher chance to win. At the college level, if you're in that 82%, kind of 82%, if you can tackle efficiently at that, now you're winning football games. Again, 84%, we're going to win a lot of football games. And then finally at the NFL, kind of the studies have shown those guys are more 88 to 90%. If they can tackle that efficient, they're going to win. And then you can show that his yards allowed after contact obviously dramatically went down. So you can practice and work on tackling, and you can see the results speak for themselves. So kind of now this is a PowerPoint that we went through with our guys. We go through every spring, every fall, and kind of teach them what we're looking for tackling and give them some objectives. Justin, you got a question there?
Yes, sir. A question just came in. How much time do you spend in Indy working on tackling, and does it depend on if you coach corners or safeties?
No, it does not depend on coaching corners or safeties. The thing you have to do is you've got to work on it every day. So typically, kind of how we work on it as a defense in a DB group unit is we usually have between 15 and 20 minutes of individual time on Tuesday and Wednesday's practice. So during that 15 or 20 minutes of individual time, we always worked at least 5 minutes of tackling. Usually on Tuesday, and I'll show you a drill that came up that we did. So usually on Tuesday, we would work on it like a 2 to 3 minute shot pre-practice, which you don't even need your helmet on. That was kind of before we even stretched or anything like that. And then we had a 5-minute tackling period where we went live against some of the wide receivers. That was on a Tuesday. And then on a Wednesday, it was just a 5-minute individual period. A lot of times we were together, corners and safeties, working specific drills that we needed to improve on for that week. So that's kind of how we did it. And then every time you're in a drill setting, it could be one-on-ones. Like I think one-on-ones is like the best time to ever work on tackling, because you're trying to get balls on the ground, but a lot of times balls are caught in one-on-ones. So once balls are caught in one-on-ones, now I can work on my sprint, my gather, my leverage, my eye contact, continuously closing ground, where you're not physically tackling somebody to the ground, but you're working all your pre-contact stuff to work on being efficient tacklers. So that's a great question. And then obviously when you're in your scout period, we always worked again. And when that's what's great about Atavist to me, is so much of it is pre-contact that you're working on. And even your contact stuff, it's not like you're physically always tackling to the ground. It's body positioning and things of that nature. So again, going to this, we kind of went through this with our guys. What is our tackling objective? It's to teach you how to dominate tackles with proper technique. You will have confidence in your ability to be an effective tackler. So that's what we wanted to get done and get our guys to really understand. So the fundamentals that we talked to our guys about, and we kind of broke it up to pre-contact and then contact. So the first one was sprint. The second is gather. The third was leverage shoulder. And the fourth was finish. And you can do this kind of however you want to get your point across to your guys. Something that, I think is critical is always remember, though, all right, always remember, words paint pictures. So whatever you're saying, you need buzzwords that they paint pictures to your young men and get the point across of fundamentally what you want. So when we talk about sprint, all right, attack is in our thing. It's full speed. We want to close ground, eliminate space, and then establish our entry. And we'll talk about entry, whether you're too high or too low, and what that means from that. All right. Now we go gather. Well, what does gather mean for us? All right. It's speed to control. You're going to continue to eliminate space and close ground. That's very, very critical. We always talked about widen and quicken. That's with our footwork. Some guys have their inside foot up. We wanted to have a normal base, a little bit wider, and we wanted our feet always in the ground so we could constantly change direction, constantly make sure we're continuing to have leverage on the near hip. So again, it was wide and quick and was a buzzword for us. Chest over knees. This is very, very critical here on your gather. Your hips are going to mirror the ball carrier's hips. And that's really critical and we'll get into it and you'll see what I mean here in a minute. And then it's control to speed. So again, it's speed, full speed. I want to be under control, continue to eliminate space, wide and quicken. And now I've got to mirror the ball carrier's hips. And that tells me when to gather, when not to gather. And then once he goes and his hips aren't, sinking so he can change direction, now I want to go from a control setting back to my speed. And that's a big point that gets misconstrued quite a bit. Now, my leverage shoulder, what does that mean? Near hip, near shoulder, all right? My strike timing, I want to get that foot and my hips over my knees so I can have power, eyes through the thighs. And then what this is allowing us to do with that near hip, near shoulder is it's keeping our head out of the game, or keeping our head out of the tackle. And that's something that Atavist is really big on, and it makes sense so you don't let the ball cross your face. You're not making negative contact and one arm kind of tackles, and it's keeping you safe as well. Now our finish, we talk about shoulder punch, and you got to be careful about this. Is it's really, you almost don't even need to clamp your hands if you have great shoulder punch. And I'll show you some drills here, and you're going shoulder punch, you're killing the engine, which is right above the knee. You're going to run your feet on contact if you're in that good positive position. If you're in a negative, now we'll talk about wrap and roll. We don't spend a lot of time on the negative wrap and roll because we want to make sure we're always in those positive positions and make dominant tackles. All right, I'm going to switch here. So if you give me a second, I'm going to share a different piece of the screen here so we can get into videos. All right, so I want to just talk about different videos and drills here that we do, and hopefully some of this will make sense. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, it's all pre-contact. Remember, we have pre-contact and contact that we're working on. So the first drill is just a sprint to gather drill. All this is working on closing ground. All right, so we're working, as you can see here, we're going to sprint for 5 yards, and then we're going to gather for 3. So we're working on continuously closing ground, our footwork, wide, quick with our footwork, and just working on, now we're going from speed to under control, speed to control here. So it's a really easy drill to do. So you can see this is our pre-practice drill. So they just go one at a time, and I'm just constantly working on speed under control, speed under control. When we're doing this, I want to make sure that they have vision on my near hip. So we'll get into more of our mimicking hip of the ball carrier, but that's what we're working. Here you can see I'm just moving. So this is a great video and angle here. I'm looking at their eyes. Right here's a great. You can see his eye control right here on my hip. I want to be a little bit wider here with his feet. And we always finish, what we always talk about finishing, and you talk about, how do you practice, how much do you practice tackling, is we always finish with our palms down on the near thigh. That, if you can touch a guy's thigh with your palms down, that means you're going to have great body positioning with your near foot, your near shoulder. You're also going to have good knee bend with your palms down instead of palms up. You're lifting. You're going to constantly be working through that near thigh. So anytime we finish on tackling, that's how we're always going to tackle there. So again, this is just a sprint to gather drill right there. Now a track tackle, All right. It's working the same concepts, continuously closing ground, our leverage. We're going to sprint. And now it gets a little bit more of your eye control into it. So my vision now, I'm going to mimic the hips of the ball carrier. So when the ball carrier stutters or sinks his hips, meaning he can change direction, that's going to cause me to gather. When he starts to sprint, his hips raise up, and now he's going in a full speed. I want to go from control to speed. So I'm working on speed to control, control to speed on this drill. Eye movement, mimicking the hips, as well as footwork in my gather, widen and quicken. So you can see the drill right there in the setup. Now I'm going to pause it here for a second, and this is critical. And you kind of lost me. Right here is me as a coach. And I think it's critical that you're in the background and you're following these guys going, because what you're looking for, you want to be behind the runner so I can see what is this guy looking at? What's the tackler looking at? I want to make sure his eyes are down on his hip. When the running back stutters and sinks his hips, that now I'm going to start to widen and quicken and get my gather. He speeds up, I get from control to speed. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. And it's amazing when I was watching stuff like my first fall at Rutgers, we're doing the drill, and I don't know if you can see the cursor. Well, here's where I'm standing. Well, if I'm standing right here, I really can't. The point of the drill is working on eye control and leverage. Well, I'm not getting anything out of standing right here. The same thing. If we could do this and videotape this, ideally what I'd like to do is have the video over here so I'm facing the tackler and can see his vision and his hip movement. Guys, you can do this. You don't need a video crew. You can use an iPad. You can use, if you've got a student assistant, student manager, if you've got a guy that's injured, you can have him have his iPhone, and he can be over here and videotape this for you. I want to try and pause it here on this one in a second, just so you can see right there. Let me see if I can go back a little bit. Sorry. Again, with the video, it's not as good. I want to show you the finish here of what we're talking about and where we're looking at hand placement. So right there, you can see his head is going to be behind the hip. When he makes contact with his hands, his right foot, right shoulder are all going to be in the ground, near hip, near shoulder. Palms are going to be down right there on his thigh. So that's what we're looking for on the finish. Again, all pre-contact. Right there's a great picture. You can do this with no pads on all summer long. Here's the same drill, just from a different angle. Again, as you can see, we're working on the same thing. Mimicking, we want to stay square, not allow. This should end up being a right shoulder tackle with my head behind on his near hip right there. Again, we don't want to get with my head across and allow this ball carrier to cut back on us. That's what we talk about being too high, too low on our entry level. All right. Now, the next drill is now taking those same coaching points, but now instead of being a technical drill where we should have, again, 95 to 100% efficiency, now we want to make it a decision-making drill. Okay, the decision-making will be more 75 to 80%. Okay, so you can see right here, here's the tackler, here's the ball carrier. He's starting up about 3 yards. Again, I'm in just a set position. Once he goes either direction, now I'm going to work on my leverage, all right, near foot, near shoulder. I'm going to work not really much of a gather here. It's more continuously closed ground and then a near foot, near shoulder tackle. So now I have some decision making. He can go either way, either direction he wants. Again, you can see where I'm standing so I can try and see. You see the finish. Again, still finishing with my palms down. Same type of drill here, a decision-making drill. And this is a great drill. So now I'm going to put a little bit more so how you can see it. I'm working speed initially. I'm going to control. So when I go speed to these cones right here, when I get to these first cones, I'm going to start to gather. When I start to gather, that's the cue for the running back. He can go either direction to either disc right here. And now I want to go speed, control. Okay, now I'm mimicking the hip movement. His hip movement's telling me which direction to go. And this is what's critical is now I want to go back to speed, and I'm making that good leverage right shoulder or left shoulder tackle here. So here you go. Speed, gather. Now you can see I'm going back to speed, right? Speed, control with my gather, back to speed, finishing with that nice shoulder tackle. And the next one is what we call a sumo tackle. And then on the sumo tackle, this can be both a pre-contact and contact drill. We actually did this, and let me get to the video here. We did this, so pre-game, this was what our guys wanted to do. In this drill here, we're doing a pre-contact where we're just tagging off. But, excuse me, this is actually the drill our players wanted to do pre-game, and we actually did it where it was more of a contact, and we were working shoulder strike in the finish. So all it is you can see the guys back to back. So this guy will be the ball carrier. This guy will be a tackler. All right, there's 3 discs, one here, and one here. Each guy will run around. They can go to either disc they want. They'll run around either disc, and they're coming back in the middle to make this tackle. So now we've got a decision making, because now I got to go full speed, but now I've got to find my leverage. I've got to find the angle I want to get into, and now I want to close with an effective base on this drill. So that's really big. I want to make sure I'm taking the proper leverage angle, and I'm closing with an effective base. So you can see kind of how the drill works here. Oh, sorry here. Again, you can make this as competitive as you want. You can see different. So now it's different angles. I got to find my angle. All right. I got to mimic the hip. If he's going full speed and I've got a nice angle here, there is no need to gather. I'm just going to speed right now and make a good palms down tackle. This is a great drill to work. All right. The 6-cone drill is a very, very similar setup here. So now here you work at it. This is a tackler here. You can see where I'm set up, so I can always see the hips and the vision of the tackler here. So here's the tackler. There's cones set up on either side. He's going to run. He can go either direction, run around the cone, and then find the ball carrier. And so now I have to find the leverage angle that I have to go to. Here's a ball carrier. There's tackles, or discs set up at different angles here. He can sprint to any cone he wants to, goes around the cone, and then gets vertical. So again, now I'm working on, I've got to sprint full speed. Now I've got to get my vision and eyes and find the angle and the leverage for my entry, continually closing ground on the drill. Again, this is a pre-contact drill that we're working on. You don't need any kind of pads to do it. So again, the biggest mistake is when I come out of, all right, when I come out of the disc, when I come out, I need to find the ball carrier. So right now in this position, I have a great angle, great leverage, right shoulder tackle. The ball carrier could go either way, so he could slash me or freeze me either direction. So I want to mimic his hip movement here. His hip movement, he's got a 2-way go. So if he stutters, I've got to gather my feet. If he doesn't, I want to continually close ground, close space to that near hip. So you can see right there. Now, what you want to do, if I get in this position here, this position, sorry, I'm going to go back in a second there. I don't want to gather because of my angle. I want to never gather in this situation. I want to continually sprint and close the ground and just leverage the near hip, because if I gather, he's just going to run away from me. All right. So those are pre-contact drills that you can do. So next we want to work on some contact drills. And again, even these contact drills, we don't need to even worry about pads. You don't need pads. You can do these without helmets, without shoulder pads, all fall camp, all spring, in the summer, all those. So the first thing we're going to work is shoulder punch. So I'll show you the drill here a little bit. All right, how we have it set up is we've got tacklers on this side. These are the ball carriers, and we've got a line. And you can do it as fast as you want to go. So I'm standing here because I want to be able to see the shoulder punch. I want to see the knee flexion and all that. So we'll just go down the line, tackle, and then they'll switch it. Tackle, then they'll switch it, and then we'll come back, and they're already switched and ready to go, and I'll switch sides. I want to be behind the guy so I can see where their shoulder strike are. So some coaching points here. You know, this is working really the timing focus. You can see a 45-degree flexion right over here. Our toe is prepped in the ground. So we want our knees and hips over our knees. So it should run a nice stake, if I put a stake through our shoulder, through our knee, through our front toe, so I can really get my hips and explode through. So I want my eyes up. I'm aiming, right? Eyes through the thighs here, and I'm really emphasizing my shoulder punch. The first thing I want to make contact, it's a jab, and I want that shoulder to make contact and really go right through my right shoulder, right through right foot right here. All right. And I don't even need to really wrap or worry about clamping on this. If I do a good job and really punching that shoulder through, you're going to see the force will force the ball carrier back and onto the ground. So you can set this drill up like this. You can also set the drill up where they're a yard apart, their head up. So right now it's predetermined. It's a technical drill, predetermined, and I'm just telling you, it's a right shoulder, right foot tackle. All right. You can set it up where now these guys are head up. They're on both knees, and the ball carrier can step to his right or to his left. And now I got to know, hey, which foot do I need to come up with so I make a near foot, near shoulder tackle. So here's the drill. I'll let it go. Again, you can watch, look at the emphasis on the shoulder strike here. Bam, right there. That's what we're looking. Shoulder strike right there, clamping. Again, look at where you're standing as a coach so you can maximize your coaching and teaching out of it. Again, you can see right there, no head, getting your hips through. Perfect. Watching through here, here's just this coming up. So you're going to watch number 15 here. We got a couple different angles. Here's the drill at work, working the shoulder strike right there. Go to this tight. I got two different clips here. Again, right here, you'll see number 15. And this is the drill we just did, working the shoulder strike, shoulder punch. Bam, right there. Okay, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. There's one more angle here of the same thing, and then I'll show you one more clip. Same guy right here, working again, shoulder punch, just the drill we did. For you young coaches, anytime you have great clips of a drill and it shows up in a game or practice situation, you want to make sure you can clip that and kind of put them back to back, so as you can build a library as you're explaining drills. Hey, here's the drill. Here it is happening in a game situation, kind of what we talked about earlier. Bam, right there. You can see that's the shoulder punch right there. That's a dominant tackle. All right. So now building on that, we're working just a crash pad shoulder punch tackle. Same thing. We're working contact on this drill, just working same thing. So now it's still technical. There's a little bit of a decision making because now we want to make sure when we make this contact right here, bam, right there, you can see my near foot, near shoulder, all that. And I'm working with my strike timing right now and my hips through. What's up, Justin?
I got a couple things. One, Coach asked if there's a specific distance from the ball carrier you teach the defender to gather.
Yep. Normally, a specific, we usually say 5 to 7 yards. And again, what we're looking for when we're gathering the whole time, the only time I am going to gather, all right, is if that ball carrier can have a two-way go on me. So I'm mimicking his hip movement. So if he could have a two-way go and he can go to my right or to my left, I need to gather and be under control. So now I can change and make sure I continue to have my shoulder leverage. If the ball carrier is away from me and he does not have a two-way go because of my proximity and I'm trying to get to that leverage hip, or his hips are telling me he's going full speed, I do not need to gather, if that makes sense. Does that make sense how I explain that? So and as a young coach, and even when I first started with Atavis, when I first got to Rutgers, I was putting too much gather on the or too much emphasis on the gather. And when I gather, remember, I'm coming under control. And if that ball carrier is going full speed and he's working away from me, I'm never going to get to that near hip. So as long as I can track the near hip and close ground to that near hip, I don't want to gather. I want to gather when the hips of the ball carrier make me come under control because he can now cross my face and I can lose leverage.
And the other thing, Coach, was the video itself is kind of laggy or jumping a little bit. They were asking if you wouldn't mind if you can draw on the screen as you're explaining different things.
Unfortunately, I don't know. Let's see if I can do it.
If not, it's no biggie.
Unfortunately, again, I'm with my situation. I'm in a janky situation. I can't. Hopefully, I think you'll be able to post this stuff, and I can send you the video.
Yeah, if
maybe
you can send me the
can
video,
have the video,
yeah,
and those guys can have
perfect.
it.
Yeah, I'll
then,
post it to the drive.
yeah.
Perfect.
So I apologize for that.
No, you're good.
And
That'd be great. Thanks, Coach.
Yep. So again, I'm going to try and speed up a little bit, but just so you guys get an idea of what we want out of these drills. Again, so we're working really strike timing. I have the guys hold a pad here, just so the purpose of them holding a pad is so we work on maximum contact, running our hips through. And this is just, again, a feel of our strike timing near foot, near shoulder. All right. Technical, a little bit of decision making, but a technical skill that they're practicing right there. A little bit of movement. This is my favorite drill. This is close angle choice. And now this is putting pre-contact and contact all together, a decision-making drill, very game-like. So you can see what they're going to do. So we got crash pads here, and we got a hand shield here. Again, the reason why we want to do it is so these guys get used to full contact. You're not slowing down at all. We want maximum effort. So the purpose of the drill or the drill setup, I'm going to sprint for 5 yards. I'm going to sprint full speed for 5 yards. When I get to this disc, I'm going to start to gather. When I gather, so I'm going sprint. Now I'm going to control in my gather. When I start to gather, now the ball carrier has a direction. He can either go to his left or to his right. So I'm going to gather. Again, my eyes now are on his hip, so I can mimic his hip movement. Once his hips tell me which direction he's going, now I'm going to get out of my gather, and this is going from control back to speed. I'm working leverage shoulder, and then I'm going to finish with a strike timing tackle. So I love this drill. I think it's very realistic, and it helps. This drill happens all the times, especially as a DB open field. Sprint, gather, and again, I know that's a little bit choppy, so I'll let it run. Sprint, gather, bam, right there, leverage shoulder. Sprint, gather, control, leverage shoulder, making sure. Again, some coaching points is when I get to the disc here, all right, when I get to the disc, I want to make sure I'm square. I don't want to cross over. If he goes to my left, I don't want to cross my feet over here. I want to push off my outside foot to stay square and take that great angle. And again, I want to make sure I'm going back to speed on this. What's up, Justin?
Question here is any recommendations for schools that only have one crash mat?
Yeah, and realistically, you don't need to use the crash pad. I just do it because guys feel like they're a little bit there's not as much contact. Yeah, you can do it where you don't have to make it a total choice. So now I'm working sprint. You have one, you set it up on the left side. I'm working sprint gather. When he starts to gather, now the ball carrier goes to that left, and I know I'm making a right shoulder, uh, right footed tackle, and then move the crash pad to the other side. And now, so you're still making a little bit of a decision, not quite as much is how you can do it. All right, wrap and roll. We don't work this a whole bunch. This is, again, a technical drill. We're just working some lateral footwork here, and then you can do any kind of breaks or any kind of drill you want. And then we finish where, again, I'm in a negative position. Everything we're doing and everything that Atavis has taught me, I used to always work this drill, is we want to try to not be in this position. This means we're in a negative position to pre-contact, to make contact. And if we're in this, the effectiveness of our tackling is not as great. But we want to practice it because we will be in this situation some. So all we're working on, again, lateral footwork here. And then the finish, we have a tackle or a agile bag, and we're working on wrapping and rolling. When we roll, we want torque and you know, coaching points on that. We want torque. We're trying to get both hips on the ground, roll around, and finish on top. So those are some coaching points on the roll there. So here again, watching Saquon Hampton. This is a great job. We're just playing our quarters coverage right here. You can see he's working lateral footwork, drive, bam, he ends up being in a negative situation, and he rolls. Pretty good roll here. You can see both hips. He's got great torque, both hips on the ground, and he's finishing on top. So you can see it right there. All right, I'm going to fast forward this a little bit. Now we talked about some technical drills. We talked about decision-making drills, and now we're getting into some game-based drills. And this is, we talked earlier on every Tuesday, we did this for 5 minutes with our wide receivers and running backs. So kind of our setup for this sideline tackles, I'm going to pause it here first. We went wide receivers versus DBs. We went linebackers versus running backs and tight ends, and we did this for 5 minutes. All right, you can set it up a couple of different ways. On this initial, we had a 10-yard box here where we set it up. You can go 5 yards. We started with a cut tackle, so we worked on a cut tackle. So you started off, you defeated a cut, so set hit. All right, he was going to lunge, you would defeat a cut. As he was cutting, the manager was throwing a ball to the receiver, and now the receiver had a one-cut move. He was getting vertical. He had a one-cut move, and we were live tackling to the ground. You could also set it up where now you're in a fit position, and you're going to work more of a what we call a snag or difference, where your hands are inside, you're getting off a block, and now I'm going to make a tackle. This is very realistic for linebackers. You put it in a 5-yard setting. I'm working getting off a block. Now I've got to work my leverage and making a tackle. So you'll see all your technical skills and decision-making drills will all come up into this one drill. It's an unbelievable drill and really helps your football team make tackles. Let me go back and let that play a little bit. It was a little bit choppy here. So here you go, defeat the cut, gather. Now he needs to go back. So there you could see his strike timing was not very good. Here, negative situation. He got into a negative situation, so he had to wrap and roll. As you can tell on this one, there is not much gather. He had to gather a little bit, but he went speed to control. So right there's no gather at all. This is right here is a great example on this drill where there is no gather because his leverage is taking it away. He's tracking the near hip. He's got great entry point, and there is no bam right there. Great leverage shoulder dominant tackle. All right. So again, that's a great drill. I'm going to fast forward, then I'll come back to some examples here. I know we don't have a whole bunch of time. This is another game-based drill that we did. We actually started all of our practices on Tuesdays with this. This is a full team drill that we did. So the wide receivers and running backs and people carrying the balls, they were working on, we called it no peeky. They were working on open field running, ball security. We were working on open field tackling. All right. So I'll get into the setup here in a second when we get into a better picture here. All right. So you can see kind of the drill here. We called this no peeky. So you can see the drill set up. So we've got two defenders, one here and one here. All right. You can do the drill where both guys are going at the same time and you're making a vice tackle, or you can go one at a time. What I was doing is I was pointing on which guy was live. We didn't want to go this guy, then this line, then this line, because now the ball carrier knew who was going live, and he knew he could just run away from the ball carrier or from the tackler. So we wanted it to be as realistic as possible. So you can see the tackler was 15 yards away from the ball carrier. He was apexed in the middle. We had a quarterback with a agile bag. When the manager, coach, whoever hit the quarterback with the agile bag, that signified to the tackler, whichever guy was live, he would do an up down, and now he had to sprint to get in closed ground to get his. And again, one of the biggest things with your sprinting is determining your entry angle. All right. Quarterback would throw the ball to the receiver or running back. He would turn, and now he had to make the guy miss. All right. He had to make the guy miss. I'm going to pause it here and talk about just a little bit of our entry angle as far as our sprint and how we worked on leveraging the football. I know the video is a little choppy here. So right here, I'm going to pause it, maybe. Let's go to the next one. This is a really good rep by Ronnie. You can see there a sprint and a gather and then sprint. So right here, I'm going to pause it. We talked about our entry angle, all right? If you were too low on your entry angle, meaning you came, and I don't know if you can see the cursor, if I ended up really on that 40-yard line and I'm not having a good right shoulder, right hip entry angle, then the ball carrier was going to do what we talked about. He was going to slash us, meaning he was going to cross our face and go this way. If our entry angle was bad and I was too high, meaning I was in the divide area and I wasn't, again, entering and sprinting to that near hip, all right? Now the ball carrier was what we called freeze us, meaning he was going to stutter a little bit, get our feet to stop, and then he was just going to run away from us. Either of those situations are bad. I cannot make a tackle. So in this drill, common mistakes that were being made is a tackler wanted to gather, and he wanted to get up. He would start to sprint, and then like right here in this position, I want to gather. Well, if I do a great job with my entry angle and I'm sprinting full speed to the near hip of this ball carrier, if he cuts back, it's a collision. If he goes away, it's a great time to shoulder strike or shoulder punch and great strike timing. I don't even need to gather. When I need to worry about gathering is if this guy gets me head up or I'm close to him within the 5 yards and his hips, again, I'm mimicking his movement, his hips tell me he could either slash me and he's got a two-way go, if that makes sense how I'm explaining that. So I'll let the drill ran. Right there, sprint. I want to go back on that because that's a good rep there. And you can see just the sprint, his entry angle, his gather to control, and then goes back to a full speed sprint. So sprint to control, speed to control, back to speed right there, bam, great angle right there. So here on this one, you can see this young man, he gathers too early, and now he doesn't need to gather. He's taking a great angle. He's too high on his entry angle, and the ball carrier just freezes him. On this, and we did our kicker. So this is a kicker here. You can see on this, what the kicker does is the kicker is too low on his entry angle, and the ball carrier now slashes him right there. So those are different entry angles and things like that that we talked about. I know we're about out of time, so those are some drills that parlay into game production. I'd like to go back real quick to, if I can get onto this PowerPoint and just show you a couple grading things and a couple ways that, you know, Atavis really helped us out. Let me see if I can get back to this, share screen. So this is kind of every Sunday or Monday, I would get this report and we would go through it with the whole defense. And this is kind of how we graded and looked at what do we need to work on for the next week. What do we need to improve on? So this is our game against Maryland this past year. It's got it broken up by position group and by each player, D-line, linebacker, DB, and then our totals. And you can see it's got tackle opportunities here. Was it a dominant tackle? Was it an effective tackle? Was it a poor tackle? And again, poor tackles are still made tackles. You can see percentage made. Again, the number we're shooting for is between 80 and 85% right there. Our performance, we want 65% on that's performance. That means when you make contact, how many yards after contact were they getting, if that makes sense. So this is just kind of how we tracked and monitored our guys. Our players were really into this. That we posted this, they wanted to look at it, and our drill setup kind of mimicked the reports that we were getting. So this was very critical for us to kind of self-study. What do we need to work on? How are we tackling as a unit? What do we need to work on? And how are we tackling as a defense? So this broke it down even more so. So you can see it had, you know, the gray were the DBs, the black were the D-line, and the yellow were the linebackers. So for closing space, as you can see, DBs, we did a decent job in closing space. And then the linebackers needed to work on, or excuse me, D-line, they needed to work on their sprint more. When you look at the leverage, right, D linemen needed to work on that. When you work on footwork, the D linemen were in great position on their footwork. So then it gave us right here, D-line top issues continue to be close reaction. So getting off blocks, so they were on blocks, and then trying to be in position to make that tackle. For the DBs, you know, big improvement in closing space. Best effort, you know, continue to focus is on eye control into contact. So what would happen now is, based on this study right here, they would give us drills that we would do on those Tuesdays and Wednesdays of practice week to improve the issues that we were having and what we needed to really work on.
Coach, got a couple questions here for you. You said the players like the sumo drill. What was another player favorite drill?
The close angle choice drill, just because there was, it worked kind of on all facets. It was a decision-making drill. They worked on pre-contact with their speed, and then they were under control, and then they were then they got back to speed, and then using the hand shields. They felt like if you were a tackler, you felt like, hey, I could run through the guy and really put my shoulder into it, and it wasn't hurting guys. You know, they were fun, they had fun with it, with some competitiveness, where the guy holding the hand shield would kind of try and almost stutter and make a move to fake him out. And then the tackler, like what he tried to do, they tried to put enough power on the strike timing to knock those guys off the crash pad. So they kind of had fun with that one.
And the other question here, who does the tackling analysis for every play, and how long does it take to complete a game?
Yeah, so that's what we used Atavis for. So like I was the liaison for Atavis, and it really minimized the amount of time that me as a coach, position coach, or coach in general had to put into it. So I would spend about 30 minutes on Monday going through. They would spend on Sunday. They would go through each play and grade each play and go through it. I can get you guys, if somebody had wanted to get in contact with them, get them in contact. I don't know exactly per play how long it took, but my guess is you could do it from 30 seconds to a minute per play, just go through it. But they would give us the report. So what I would do is I would use the report this way. So they would give us the total report. I would spend about 30 minutes on Monday going through it myself and then presenting it to the defensive staff and saying, hey, these are the drills that we need to make sure we go through and work on the following week and make sure everybody was on the same page. And then what I would do on Wednesday is I would present to the whole defense, the players, these reports, and then I would give an example. Hey, here's the drill we did last week, and here's this drill that came up in the game. And it could be a good drill and a good play in the game. See how it's working for us. It could be, hey, look what you did in the drill. In the drill, your strike timing was very, very poor here with your hips under your knees. And yes, you made the tackle, but it was not, an effective tackle. Well, here's the game. It was 3rd and 3. You made contact, but you had the same issue. Your strike timing was poor. Now you made contact at the line of scrimmage, and that running back was able to get 3 yards for the first down. So I would spend about 30 minutes putting that together. Hopefully that kind of answers your question there, Justin.
Yes, sir.
And I know how these go. That's been about an hour. I do have drills. Or not drills, but just game film, so you could kind of see this stuff in action. What I'll do, Justin, is I'll figure out a way to get this stuff to you.
Okay.
So you can have the PowerPoint, you can have the video, and hopefully those guys, but we're all in this thing together. I'm about making the game safe, about really helping our players execute performance at a high level. And that way they can have some of the videos and stuff like that where it's not so choppy.
Yeah, and yeah, if you send it to my email, I can download it and I'll put it into the drive so anybody can access it.
And I'll give you guys, I'm on Twitter, NoJo Football. Follow me. I'll follow you back. My email, if you want to email me, I can send you whatever. We can get on the phone and talk. It's Noah, NOAH. _Joseph, JOSEPH, the numerical number 3 at yahoo.com. So again, Noah _Joseph 3 at yahoo.com.
Got one question just came in, Coach. Said he didn't see any D-line in the drills. What are they doing during the tackling time? Is it restricted tackling?
Yep, and there again, we on some of the pre-contact drill work stuff, and especially in the off season, in the first couple of days of training camp, we would do some drills where we would circuit it out and rotate through it. And then once we kind of got into the contact phase of things and got the technical drills taught, and that was more decision making, we just designated a time where, hey, on this period, everybody's working tackling. And really, like you're saying, for the D linemen, the biggest thing they had to work was a one-arm restricted tackle. So they were in a fit position, all right? There would be a command. Now they would work on what we called the difference of getting off a block. They were working on trying to get off a block. they had one hand still tied up on the block, one arm off, and now the ball carrier coming through their hole and working on making that one arm restricted tackle. That was a drill they worked tremendously for the D line during that time period. Obviously, for those guys, they didn't have to work a lot of your sprint because they didn't, their space was limited. So they still had to work on footwork and making sure their strike timing was good, but more of it was one arm restricted.
Appreciate that. Oh, appreciate that, Coach. Sorry, I was hitting the mute button. If anybody else has any questions for Coach, obviously he shared his contact information, so reach out to him on Twitter. And if you go back to my page, the lineup is in there, so you can find his Twitter handle on there as well. But definitely want to thank you for your time, Coach, jumping on with us, and for a great presentation. It's really good, really good.
Good. Well, hopefully you guys learned something. Again, Justin and all you coaches out there, I appreciate what you do, not only for the game, but for the young people. They are our future. And then, like I said, this is a great opportunity at this time of the year, what the country's going through, to really practice what we preach and get our young people in this country right now to believe.
That's right. Absolutely. Well said, Coach. Absolutely. Once again, thank you for spending the morning with us, getting up early and giving us that great presentation. Yeah, if you email it to me, Coach, I'll make sure I get it on the drive so these coaches can have access to it, the drills and the PowerPoint and all that stuff. So if anybody, once again, if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to reach out to Coach, whether it's via Twitter or email, and